Hey, welcome to Instant Connection 2, where we are going to learn how to have a conversation, but not only that, learn how to deal with resistance. So what happens, when you walk up to a girl and you talk to her and she doesn't really give you a reaction back. She's confused at what you're saying, or she even questions what you're saying. And you feel like that weird guy because you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, and you're getting, rejected. You're getting defiance back. You're getting confusion back. Well, guess what? We're going to show you exactly how to deal with all those different variables so that you can move in a direction where you're having a great conversation, you build a great connection, you bring out her awesome side so two people, you and her, connect. And this isn't just limited to your social and sexual life, but this will help you in all the areas of your life. So when you are in front of anybody, you can just simply express. That's what we're doing here. That's what we love to teach. And that's what we made this lesson for. So invest 40 minutes of your time starting now to learn all this good stuff. Do the exercises at the end. They're super easy and they're meant that so that you get the exact results of what we're going to go over for lesson 3. All right, let's get started. Here we are, TSL online presentation, getting the connection. And what this is about is taking what we learned from the previous presentation, turn it into a conversation that connects. Ultimately, man, let me just tell you, all this stuff is geared very specifically so that you can pinpoint, take that true social dynamic, the true art of seeing how people interact, how people connect, and being able to predict and calculate where to go, taking all of that and moving it into a clear direction so that we can get a date, make a connection, and make the real decisions of how to have a good social and sexual life. So in this video, what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to take that opener, put it into a simple conversation. We've already kind of done that, but remember, we left you hanging a little bit with learning how to end it and so on, and that's all good. We're going to make it into a conversation that has meaning to her, meaning to you, and it's going to be fulfilling. It's not just some static routine that makes stuff work. And that's one of the things that social dynamics runs into. For some reason, for the last 15 years or so of social dynamics and how it's taught, is rather than taking it into something that has meaning for you, it bypasses that to what works. And what you're going to find out, what's absolutely true, we'll take anybody's challenge on this, is that we can make social dynamics work more efficiently when we do tailor it to you. So the predictability, the consistency, the absoluteness of how it's going to work for somebody, the results are going to be better when we do actually adapt it to you. And also, one of the most important things about this is we're going to learn how to read negative responses or different types of reactions and how we can respond properly to them to make it all work for us. So just as we covered in the last video, we're looking at success. We want you to get the experience of being the man that achieves this. So you want to be able to experience that success in a specific way. Well, guess what? That is getting a connection. And it's a little bit more in depth in this because we're going to give you a social dynamic for it, but also we're going to make it so you can get a connection. And this connection is going to be specific. All right. Just like last time, we don't want you to get anything crazy. It doesn't need to be hard. You're going to get that. In life, if you are experiencing anything with women, things will get difficult and challenging, and you're going to be challenged already. You don't need to push your comfort zone. That's a lie to get you to invest more in stuff or whatever it is. But it's not necessary for learning how to get good with women. What you need is experience with that. It's always going to help you. And so this experience is that you want success with any woman. Notice I didn't say the super hot one, the one who's going to be your wife, but you need to get experience with women. And we could even go so far to say people, on how you can use the previous presentations techniques of how to open and start a conversation with somebody, that first 5 to 30 seconds, and then move it into how you can build a connection at a deeper level with a specific direction, while being you. The result that you want is that, but also her caring about what you say and you caring about what she says. And all I care about is the smallest degree of success in that. Okay, so we're going to stick with the 3 simple things. So we're going to learn 3 simple things with the different techniques that we're going to learn. So in this presentation, there's just 2, but there's actually a lot to it. And I'm going to say this. You're probably best off watching this video a few times and taking one step at a time with it. Okay. So one little part, maybe the first reply, maybe the second reply, the third reply, and then how we could move to getting that into a conversation. So, that's going to be 4 to 5 different exercises that you do in it. And anyway, good stuff. Let's get started to learn this and get set up to where we can take a date. All right. So anytime you talk to somebody, anytime you open and you do what we were telling in the first presentation is you were going to get 3 replies. It's always going to be these. And, there could be a 4th one, but that kind of ties into this. But when you get those 3 replies, you can literally predict how to respond to them best, what's going to happen with those responses and so on. And it builds this crazy web of, different things. So if we go up to somebody and we say hello, they're going to either answer us back, they're going to be confused, or they're going to be defiant and, tell us to leave or something like that. There is actually a 4th one that is indifference. But what's so interesting about social dynamics is we obsess about the specifics of what we're going to say to a specific reply. What we're saying here is we're going to take a step back. We're going to generalize those, and we're going to say, was it a positive answer back? So that means they could be happy, they could be a little bit even defiant, they could be a little bit confused, but they gave us an answer back. They're attempting to have that conversation with us. Okay. The second one is confusion. And rather than it being an answer or trying to partake in this opener that we're having, or this discussion that we're trying to build with them, this connection, is that they literally do not know what we're talking about. They're bewildered. They're confused by it. Okay. And the third one is they're just defiant. They don't want to have this conversation. We're going to take those 3 generalities and we're going to give you a generality of how you can start to customize in, how to reply back. Here's the kicker. If you were to just learn lines, you wouldn't necessarily get the meaning behind it. Here, you're going to get the meaning behind it. You're going to get specific lines that you could also customize to yourself. And so then you could free flow within this and literally have 3 different responses that you can very easily handle in all your situations. So it's pretty simple. We're going to take one of the questions from the previous slideshow that we did on opening, and we're going to workshop that with the first one, and then we'll switch it up for confusion and defiance. But we're basically taking the question, hey, look, I have a question for you. I don't want to offend you by asking this, but are you single or in a relationship? Okay. So why is it that so many people are afraid of this? We're afraid to ask that question because it seems too deep. It seems like somebody can't answer it, and it might build rejection or somebody not being able to talk back. Okay, but if we could solve that, you would minimize your rejection, okay, you would know what to say afterwards and the different variables of how she was going to respond to it. And also, it would help you connect deeper. It would only make sense to ask that question. And that is what we're doing here. So we go to the answer. This is the first variable of it. When you ask somebody any sort of qualifier that we actually set up in the previous video, they're going to give you an answer. So this could mean like, what's the meaning of life? And she says, I don't know. It might be like to do good. So that sounds kind of confusing, but it's an answer. She did try and do it. Again, confusion, which we'll get to, is literally not knowing and not understanding and not wanting to be a part of the conversation. So if she does that, if she gives you any type of answer back, here is the easiest starter place for you to build a conversation from it. Okay, so if they give an answer or attempt to answer, number one, we're going to be interested. Now, as you can see here, it's written in a little bit of a darker red, be interested and be positive. Okay, in a little bit more bright red, we say more curious to find out more about her. So we become more curious to find out what she may mean by that. Or we can share something about ourselves that's relevant to this topic. So in this example, we basically start off with the same qualifier. And you can read it right here. As I have a question for you, and I don't want to offend you by asking you this, but are you in a relationship or single? And she says, I have a boyfriend. Okay, most people will say, shit, that's bad. This doesn't work for my game. I've failed. Okay, I don't want you to think that way, because we are learning a skill for connection. We are learning a skill so that we can connect with somebody better. And man, not only that, but learn how to maneuver within these different areas. And also, this is something that we've discussed a lot on our calls, is sometimes women get hit on so poorly and berated in this way that they'll just say they have a boyfriend when they really don't, to diffuse people. And there's all sorts of gray area in between. But look, if somebody has a boyfriend, don't just look at it as your only purpose is hitting on them. That mentality will ultimately kind of screw you up. What you want to see it as is like, okay, well, cool. How can I engage her more? How can I find out who she is? There's so much more to this where I can have a conversation and a connection and yada, yada, yada. And if you really wanted to be that like guy that's solely focused on picking up chicks, what she says after that, and if you explore the boyfriend thing more, you'll actually get more about female psychology and what they interact with and so on. Anyway, we're learning this skill, go with it. So she says, I have a boyfriend. Well, if we go with this, like, be interested in positive part, we just say, oh man, that's perfect. Great. Awesome. Okay. So it's just, we give it a good positive response. As you can see in your reply here, this is perfect. This will be great. Do you think how you've been attracted to him has changed? Okay. So I'm actually more curious about her situation with him. And then I go on to explain it. Okay. Because I want it to be as simple as possible for her to understand. I can say, for instance, what did you like about him when you first met him compared to what you liked about him, now or after you established that you're in a relationship? All right. So if we get this positive answer, okay, she answers back, I have a boyfriend. We are replying in a style, and you can tell it's color coded, and in that darker red, it's like, oh, this will be great. Then we move to the more brighter color red when we're saying, do you think, or like, how have you been attracted to him? How's that changed? Like when you first met him to how you're talking to him now. That's the concept that I want you to get. Okay. So we're showing interest and being positive, and then we're showing curiosity more towards her personal idea about this. Okay. Now, also, we could take another angle towards this and share a story about how this is relevant in the topic, which we'll give another example for that. But let's give another example to where we get the answer that we might like while still using these same traits of, she gave us an answer. Now we're going to show a positive reply back, and we're going to show some curiosity towards how she views these things. Okay. So we say, hey, I have a question for you. I don't want to offend you, but are you single or in a relationship? She says, I'm single, but I don't really want a boyfriend now. And the reason why I wrote it like that is because oftentimes when girls, if they sense that you're hitting on them in some way, they're going to say, oh, well, I am single, but, and then they'll give some definition after it. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. Just wanted to put it there for that reason. So we give the positive reply first. As you can see, it's color coded here. We say, okay, it actually has nothing to do with what you might think. All right. So we're just alleviating some of that tension. We're showing interest. We're giving it a positive reply. Now we're going to move into that curiosity about what she personally thinks. Okay. So it's, again, getting more personal towards her. You say, but look, I want to know what you think is attractive as a single woman. Like when you're not looking right now, for a man, but how is that in comparison to when you're in a relationship with somebody? Like, what is attractive to you about people? Okay, this is a question that I just know from experience. It's going to be easy for her to understand, easy to answer. We might need to help it along a little bit, but for the most part, we're following this template. Okay, and you could copy and paste all this for yourself. Like, this is super easy, but I want you to be able to think about the general concept that when we get an answer from a qualifier back, we're going to show interest and positivity. We're going to either show the road of being curious to find out more, or we're going to tell a story about ourselves. And that will allow us to engage and do best with that answer. Okay, that's the best starting place for you. Of course, there's multiple variables about this, but if you just wanted to learn this, copy and paste the text, try it out. You're learning a skill. Once you understand not only this concept, but see how it works, you'll be able to adapt it to yourself and improvise and all this sort of stuff. But if you just copied and pasted, hey, I have a question,
are you single or in a relationship? And they say, I'm single, and something after that, you'd say, oh, cool, man. This actually has nothing to do with that, but, or in a way that you might think. But what I want to know is what is attractive about, just how you see people like men as a single woman, even though you're not looking for anything in comparison to when you're in a relationship. Or you could get the other variable here. I mean, there's only two. It's like, oh, I'm in a relationship or I'm married or something like that. You could say, oh, perfect. Awesome. This is great. Like, how did attraction change for you when you just met your man, your husband, whatever it is, to you developing a relationship with them? Now, practice that, get that down, understand the concept, and then start playing with it with other topics. Okay? So the next one that we have is confusion. So you ask somebody a question. Let's say like, hey, I don't mean to be rude, but, are you single or are you in a relationship? And they just don't understand, right? It's something that they may not get. But that question is a little bit more black and white, but it is deep and it does take a certain amount of investment from them to answer. And so it can be intimidating for guys, but we're learning how to override that. Let's go to two other questions that came in our previous presentation on opening that were a little bit different when we got to that qualification area of that presentation. And we said, this might sound kind of funny, but what is your biggest passion? Okay. So that's kind of a hard one to answer. Even if somebody knows you really well, it's literally impossible for them to fully answer that because they don't know you. Maybe if you were in a dialogue and discussion with them, they could really honestly answer that. But even if they are trying to be honest, it's tough. And you can find yourself in a mode of confusion, or find somebody in a mode of confusion when you're saying that. The next one, the second question that we had in that slideshow was, because you're a stranger, and this will be easy for you to answer, or it could be really confusing, but what is the most attractive thing to you? Like when you're with your boyfriend or somebody that you just met, like what is that is the most attractive thing? This is something that is moving super, super deep, fast. Every girl can have a conversation about this, but because it's fast, because it's a big question, and there's kind of a lot of components to it, if you haven't noticed, it can be confusing. But I'll tell you this from experience. This actually is the question that I would start out with first of the three to have the best conversation. That's for me personally, but that would be there. And of course, these are just examples. We eventually want you to have the conversations that work best for you and that are really based off of you. But hold your horses. We're going to get to that. So example one of when we find ourselves in confusion, we're going to work with the first question. Okay. We say, hey, look, this might sound kind of funny, but what is your biggest passion? Okay. And she just says, I'm not sure how to answer that. Like, why are you asking questions like this? This is a common reply that I'll get, that many of you will get when we're trying to move deeper in a specific area that people aren't prepared for. Now, the fact of the matter is, the reality of it is, everybody wants to talk about this. Okay. But we're mired down by work. We're busy. We don't want to have this discussion. There's a stranger asking this. We're not used to it, but everybody would be willing and open to have this conversation if the right situation were there. In fact, the only thing you need for that right situation to be there is for her to be calm enough to answer it. Okay. Like if she has to be at work in 10 minutes, may not want to answer this, right? But anything else without time constraint, without having a bad day, it's very easy for somebody to answer. So the first thing that we want to do when we get confusion, okay, and this will happen to you, it will happen. It's actually a benefit because we could flip it and make it really awesome. In fact, it's a state change. So it allows us to move quicker and build more trust, more connection, more empathy, and all this sort of stuff. If we can do these two things. Number one, end the confusion. So we stop the confusion and relax it. That's the first thing. If we can do that, it's key. The second thing is then we can simplify the answer into an easy yes or no, or a quick explanation that you can easily do. Okay. And there's actually a third way, which is to explain it. In this example, we're going to go for how can we end the confusion immediately. That's always going to be there. And then simplify it to a simple, Q&A. All right. So we're basically going to, we go through it. We say like, hey, What's your biggest passion? She's like, why are you asking me this? Like, do you ask all strangers this? All you do is you end the confusion. You take away the pain. Okay. Hey, look, I didn't mean to ask you something that would make you uncomfortable. Forget I asked that actually. But let me ask you this. Okay. If you were to do whatever you'd want, like with your best friend or something, or take a vacation, you had like $10,000, like what would that be? All right. Now that's a very easy thing for her to access, and a concept to understand, and even something that she could think about immediately. And I'll explain it a little bit more. So the first thing that you saw us do that's written in the little bit darker red is, hey, I didn't mean to ask you something that made you uncomfortable. Forget I asked that. Sorry. You could even do what we talked about in the first video, is like, sorry, my name is Steve. What's your name? Let's talk like real people. Like, I can be too aggressive with how I talk at times, whatever. But hey, let me really ask you this. To which then I transition to a simplified question and answer. Easy for her to say yes to, or partake in, or participate in, or no to, or whatever. Just really, really easy. So in this one, it isn't quote unquote simple, but it's something that she can simply access in her mind. Okay, we talk about this in some of our advanced rapport lessons. I know this isn't one of them, but I wanted to drop it in here for you. But I'm saying, like, if you were to do whatever you want, okay, it's thought number one. Everybody could get that. If I say, man, if you were to do whatever you want, like, what would that be? Then I continue it, like with one of your best friends. Very easy for somebody to get. So there, as soon as you say that, you're thinking about it. You go, okay, yeah, one of my best friends, like on vacation, and then you have a limitless budget. Like, man, what would you want to do? Very easy way of walking it down. If you were to do whatever you want, thought one, like with your best friend, they can imagine that. Thought two, like on a vacation. Thought three, with limitless budget. Thought four, like what would that be? Very easy, very comfortable to talk to somebody about it. And they can all imagine it. And especially with the beginning part where we're ending the confusion and taking away the pain and the pressure, very easy to answer. Seriously, like if you have a conversation with somebody that you get confusion back, which will happen, you can, man, if you practice this, it'll be so easy to bypass. So this second example, we wanted to use this other confusing question, like because you're a stranger, and this will be easy for you to answer. It might be a little bit confusing, but what's the most attractive thing to you, like with a boyfriend or a guy or somebody you're in a relationship with? All right. So let's actually give two examples of confusion. All right. So the first one is, why would you ask me something like that? Okay, this happens. Now she's still partaking, but she's just confused. She doesn't understand, right? Okay, and another one might be like, what do you mean? I'm confused. All right. So it doesn't really matter if it's harsh or if it's a little bit more passive. The main thing is that we see it and we read it as a confused response. She needs explanation, or she needs something she can easily say yes to. In this example, we're going to end the confusion and we're going to explain the confusion. So we're going to make it something that she can understand, and we're going to back it with another qualifier to engage her. Okay. So this little reply here that we give, it might seem really complex. Don't try and dissect it. Try and understand it. If you want to understand it more, get in these conversations with people. It'll happen where people are confused, and especially if you ask a confusing qualifier like this, and just try and repeat it word for word. Okay, try and repeat it part for part. So we ask the question, what is attractive to you? Like a boyfriend or in a relationship. She's like, what do you mean? Why would you ask me something like that? That's like totally ridiculous and inappropriate for, being in a bar. And say, hey, look, I'm sorry. It's the last thing I wanted to do was confuse you or piss you off or anything. Let me explain. And if it offends you or whatever, I'm asking for a reason. I'll just leave and end the conversation. So totally take it away, right? Totally take it all away. And I say, look, when I first meet somebody, like I'm meeting you right now, we notice superficial things like what somebody wears or their face, how pretty they are, their demeanor, things like that. But as soon as I get a hint of their personality, like the real them, like I stop caring about that stuff and I care more about who they are and how they interact with me. Right? So look, let me ask you this. what is something that you notice about like your best friend that's really special to you? Again, right there, actually go for an easy question and answer for her to understand. That is easy to answer. Again, like somebody that she knows well, that she has a personal relationship. Like if I say your friend or with somebody that you know that's special to you, there's so many of those. But if I go your best friend, that particular person, you know, how are they special to you? All right. Now, in that, we're actually, you know, going a little bit deeper with that. Okay. And hopefully you can see that. That last question allows me to go a little bit deeper for her. But what makes it go deeper is how I handled the confusion. All right. I ended the confusion, took away the pressure. I then gave an explanation for the understanding of it, and I followed it up with an easy way to interact and engage. Super important that you get this, all right? Like I said, it might sound kind of confusing, but it's not. Just try it. This will be such a language for you if you can discipline yourself for this. Okay, defiance. Okay, this is also going to happen, and we all fear it. It's the push away. It's the get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. Or it could even be total indifference, like, you know, somebody's looking at you. This is what every man fears, and this is why we don't go out and talk to people. You know, the reason why men and women, for that matter, don't go out and experience a great life is because we don't know what to say when we hit a point of silence. We don't know what to do when we get a point of defiance. And that halts us from our expression, you know, and it just screws us all up. All right. So this is what we're going to cover here. All right. And again, you got two options. All right. And they're real simple. If somebody is defiant with you, okay, then you can do two things. Number one, you can end it. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to choose your options, pick your battles, all that sort of stuff. Or number two, you can challenge it and try and alleviate it. Now, here's the thing. If you challenge it and alleviate it, you don't score any points. Maybe, you know, if you're really involved in pickup, some dudes on the forum or the message board will think you're cool and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, if you're really trying to prove yourself, I'd let it go. I'd just end it. Okay. It's not going to get you anywhere. There's plenty of people in the world who well want to talk to you and make a connection with you that are open to that. There's plenty. Okay. Talk to them. Now, here's the other thing. There are times, and I'm somebody that's really experienced with women, talking to them, all that sort of stuff, that this rarely happens. So if it rarely happens to me, it probably is rarely going to happen to you, especially because I've done this all over the world as well, is that if they are defiant, but they're just so attractive or there's something about them that I want to continue in, then I will continue. Okay. So basically I ask the question, hey, look, you're a stranger and this will be easy for you to answer, or I don't know, it might be really confusing, but what is the most attractive thing to you? Like with a guy or with, you know, in a relationship, and they're like, get away from me. Okay. Please leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. Okay. So most of the time I'm just going to be, man, I'm sorry. I totally didn't mean to offend you. Have a good day. That's most of the time. Now, if there's something there, and I could give you examples of this, like let's say number one, this is probably the most common. If I need a place to stay that night and I'm trying to interact with people and the pressure's on and I got to find a place to stay, and that is, that's a good challenge to put yourself in. It's not bad. It's awesome actually. So, and most of the time you do find a place to stay. I might say, hey, look, I was just trying to talk to you and ask you something. And I'm not trying to do anything beyond that or even make you angry. So, I mean, look, are you always like this with people or what's the deal? Okay. So I kind of put that on them. Now I could challenge it harder. I could challenge it to a lesser degree. Like a lesser degree challenge would be like, hey, I'm just trying to say hi to you. Like, totally cool. Let's start over. My name's Steve. I'm just traveling, whatever, and wanted to meet cool people. I thought that was you, but I guess that's not you, right? Now, I could put a little more pressure because if somebody does have a big wall up, I'm just going to straight out confront them and say, like, why are you being mean? Like, that's fucked up. Fuck you. You know, essentially not saying it that literally, I might, but I'd be like, hey, look, like, I was just trying to talk to you. Look, I'm traveling, you know, I like to meet people and I'd like to think I'm a good person. Why are you being an asshole? Like, I'll give you a chance to start over, or you could, be mean again. So, hey, my name's Steve. Nice to meet you. What normal people do is shake our hand, and what assholes do is tell you to fuck off and leave. And with that, it's giving a really hard option, So, a person who's in that bitchy mode or that angry, push you away mode, when I'm saying like a normal person might shake my hand back, they're like right ready to fire and say, well, I'm not normal. But if I back it with but an asshole person says, fuck you and wants you to leave, what is your decision? Because I can say that too. And I'll stay here just to make you uncomfortable. Like if I give them that second option, usually nobody wants to actively decide that they're an evil person and say that, and they break. So that's actually kind of a cool thing. Look, I'll tell you this, man, to challenge it, there has to be something or some reason that is keeping me there, because there's always such an availability of good people, beautiful people, and so on to interact with. Now, look, those are 3 things. I want to review this for you, just to know, practice, and get this down. Anytime you ask a qualifier, a question, a point of engagement for somebody, you're going to get 3 replies, okay? You're going to get, they answer it and partake. That means they could still be confused, but they're trying to answer. They're trying to interact with you. Okay, with that one, you're basically going to embrace that first answer and get it to go deeper. All right, and you have those examples of that. It's not the literal examples. It's the embracing of it and then the curiosity about making that move deeper. The second one is that they're confused. First thing we do is end the confusion, take it away. End it, take it away. Now then we either give them a simple way to answer a question, or we explain it more. So it could be like, what are you passionate about? They're confused. Like, I don't know. Okay, what are you saying? And we just say, hey, sorry. I didn't mean to ask you a big question that was like all, screwed up or whatever. But like, look, if you had options to do something, and just kind of like, when you think back to the 5-year-old you of what that was and into now, like, what part of you is still there? Like, it's still there with all of us. It's still there with me. So like, what are you passionate about? Very, very simple way for her to get it. Now that one had an explanation to it slightly, as well as a way to ask it. And I'll tell you just from experience, that would work. Okay, the next one that we get is defiance. It's just complete negative. I don't want to talk to you. Get away. Okay, and if they're still kind of sitting there or holding their ground, or they didn't walk away and run away, you'd be like, hey, have a good day. Didn't mean to bother you. Okay, that kind of hurts. That affects you, but also you have to realize you need to empower yourself with that ending of it, and that is key. The next thing you could do, if you really, really wanted to, is challenge back and just basically say, hey, look, I'm just trying to be a nice dude. I mean, are you always this way and this doubtful of people? Like, how do you make friends? Anyway, my name's Steve. Nice to meet you. So these are all extensions of what we do with that first 10 seconds to 15 seconds to opening. As you can see that some of these could be plugged in at different areas. Like perhaps if the opening goes wrong, we could do that challenge. We could end it at any different point. If we ever hit confusion, we can explain it and alleviate the tension and all that sort of stuff. So there's many different ways where these can plug and play. That's why we need to step by step learn these things, spend some time getting it. Now, the second portion of this is we want to talk about sharing ourselves. All right. Now, as you can tell from my examples, that I have a pretty set structure and an expectation of how things are going to go. And where that comes from is from experience, a lot of talking to women, a lot of just knowing how the conversation is going to go, even when we don't speak the same language and they're speaking Portuguese or something. Like I get where it's going to go. I understand the point of confusion. I understand the point of acceptance in the answer. I understand the point of defiance. I know how to alleviate that. And I know the different directions to go. Okay. Experience, you're going to have to earn. You're going to have to do that yourself and gain experience with women. But I didn't have anybody teaching me this stuff. And so I got a lot of experience on my own. It took me a long time to get it. If you know the right direction, you're going to get it quicker. So that's the beauty of this. But I also know where I want to go. If I'm talking about passions, I know where I want to go. I have that defined for myself. I know what passions mean to me. I know my journey in it. I know what it's like to be an artist in so many different ways, whether that's writing, whether that's doing, light design and theater. I know what that means in music. It's so many different things, right? Okay. When it comes to relationships, I know that too. Like I've lived so many different relationships. That's a good thing. You personally have something that totally kicks ass for yourself that you know all about, even if it's computers. Okay. And we proved this, basically in 2007 when I started doing all those stacks that were so popular, that you could talk about computer engineering and build engagement, connect it to a woman's deepest side and use it to, get laid or have whatever relationships that you want. It's a great social dynamics work with any different expression that you have. But again, these are my examples. And how did I get there is how I would like you to get there. So experience has to be earned, but knowing the direction that you want to go in and who you are can be done now. All right. So basically, if I am going to share a part of myself, I want to move it in the right direction. Okay. And I want to do that in a real simple way. There's all sorts of complex, crazy ways that we can make it. But right now we want to do it in a simple way that you can get results right now. So first off, notice the things that I'm talking about. Passions and relationships are two things that anybody can talk about, anybody can understand, and everybody's curious about. So these are easy core topics to humanity. Here's a few other ones, and there's many more than this, but personal identity, like what you think about yourself, friendships, your idea of friendships, how your friendships get built, how you pick your friends, how a lot of people, when they meet their best friends, they don't like them and then they learn to love them, all this sort of stuff. Your ambition, what is your ambition? How does it get in the way? Your purpose, your real drive. Do you live by your purpose, or is it just a concept you have? Sex and relationships, sex for yourself. Everybody's afraid to talk about sex. I talk about it immediately. Why? Because I know everybody thinks about it and I'm very comfortable with it. Kind of the thing that we talked about in the first video of, it's something I'm comfortable with. So it's very easy for me to present and make somebody understand. I also take away the confusion and the pain around it and then give it a direction that's easy for somebody to partake in. And then boom, voila, we're there. Career, our direction in career, all those things. Family, how it's good, how it's bad, how it affected us, how it builds us our biggest fears, our wants, our desires, what we really want, what we need, the things that we crave but we're so far away from, and our fears, the things which get in our way, our barriers that keep us from all those great things, our passions, our ambitions, our friendships, our ideal loves, and so on. All those things, anybody in the world can talk about them and will talk about them at will, at length, if they're given the opportunity. Why are people not doing this? This is so obvious. What we were talking about in the first presentation, like the commodity, if we were to look at this in buying and selling, and I generally hate that idea because human dynamics are so much different, but you have the greatest commodity. For any heterosexual woman, she wants a heterosexual man. You are immediately qualified for that position, but you don't take it because you say, well, I'm not this, I'm not that. Da, 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 da. You got to make it that. You got to show yourself. You got to learn to present that and connect it with other people. You also have this other amazing commodity because literally everybody in the world, man, woman, child, has the pursuit of who they are and wanting to share that with somebody else. And these are some given topics that you could spend 5 minutes on exploring where it would allow you to connect with somebody else. And if you don't believe that, that's because you haven't had it work, and it will work, and it will always work. This is like such an obvious guarantee. Take it. Why? Because it's easy to do and it will connect with people and will connect with people instantly. And in 2 minutes, you'll have some conversations that will absolutely change your life. Now, how do we explore these topics? Well, let's stick with passion and relationships. So we're going to really simply talk about this, okay? And so pull out a piece of paper, pull out a pen. You can talk about passions and relationships because you could talk about that. Those are just the strong points that I like to talk about. So we're just going to say, what are we passionate about? What do you want out of relationships? And we're going to answer these in depth as possible. Now, seriously, spend 5 minutes on each one of these questions. Now, here I only spent about 30 seconds, but you can see the depth. And for examples, these are good because they're simple and every single part of what I wrote here could be used in what we're going to learn how to do. So we're going to start here. I'm passionate about working with others, to be the best possible man I can be and to work with people, with men like that all around me. All right. Okay. So good start. That's kind of like what you'll notice when you talk to people about their passions. They'll give you their tagline answer, which is that for me. It's like, hey, that sounds good. But here's the motherfucking reality of it. As I write about this more, it's like, well, wait a minute. How often do I actually do that? Like, it's actually hard for me to be the best possible man I can be. I mean, there's so much confusion about that goes throughout my day, family, work, things get in the way. And to be honest, I don't always have time for it. It's like crazy. So I could be really passionate about that, but I also don't often do that. Well, guess what? Most people don't either. And the exact same things that get in the way for you probably get in the way for them. Okay. So I just know from working with so many different clients and mainly from interacting and talking to so many women that this is pretty much true for everybody. Okay. But we don't talk about it, and we all want to talk about it, right? If we could talk about it, we would. I was actually having lunch with a guy the other day, and he's like, man, I just wish I could talk with somebody about these problems of like the things that I want to do in my life and how to do them. Like, I wish people would open up and connect with that, because I think everybody has that. I'm like, exactly. All right. So the next one is like, what do I want from relationships? Well, what I want is like deep connections, true connections with all the people in my life, my family, the loves of my life, my friends, and so on. I want them to be good relationships. I want them to empower me, fulfill me, serve me, have me serve them, just have this awesome thing. Well, guess what? That doesn't always happen. They can suck a lot of the times, all right? Sometimes you get in an argument with your wife and she decks you with the ring that you bought for and you're paying for it throughout your whole life. So, a lot of the times, like, I don't put as much into my relationships. A lot of times shit gets weird, but how do I still hold on to that thing, that value that I really, try and live by? Okay. So a great way to connect that, as we explore this ourselves, we're going to find that there's, all these different dynamics within it. There's the ideal that we have. There's what we don't do. There's what never happens. There's this specific journey that's so unique to us that is, just crazy to be on. But what we want to do is we want to put this into a structure. And this is rapport cycling. Now, rapport cycling is a social dynamic that was created by TSL. It's taught within our groups, and it's super easy, but can get very complex. It can get extremely complex. In fact, in the next video, we're going to show you a few examples of how it can get complex. And if you do anything with us on rapport or seduction, you're going to learn about rapport cycles. Okay. You're going to see how complex they get, but it's so simple that you can do it right now. Okay. So the entry level structure to this is question, ground, or explanation, and then question. So it's just a question, then an explanation, then question. That's super, super easy. Okay. So if we were to take this passion thing and let's say we did the stuff previous, okay, and we said, what are you passionate about? And she gets confused, right? And that's one of the most common things because it's a big question, right? You just met her. You're 15 seconds into the conversation. And she's like, why are you asking that? You say, look, I'm going to take away the pain. Just say, look, I didn't mean to like freak you out or whatever. I could do that. And just, it's kind of an asshole thing by me. I'm sorry. But let me explain, like, people have these different ideas of what they really want to do. And I mean, I'm sure you know what that is. And I know what that is. But look, let me explain for me. Now I'm going to insert this ground. I'm going to say what is important to me about my passions and the concept that I'm trying to go for because I want to build a conversation that works for me. Okay. So now I'm just going to insert this and say, see, look, with me, I know what my passions are. I can tell them to you right now. But my life gets in the way of that so much. Now I'm just going to ask another question. Okay. I'm going to say, does life get in the way of the things that you really want to do? Does life get in the way of your passions? Man, super easy. That will move you into a fast conversation that connects. Okay. So think about this. You do all the opening stuff. Okay, you get the confusion, you get the straight answer, you get some defiance and you want to power through it. Well, this is what you do next. This is how you get the exchange. All right, super cool, right? And it will get that. And you'll be amazed at how well it can get that. But what we talked about before helps set it up. So we talk to somebody, and there's actually another example after this, but we talk to somebody and we say like, hey, this is kind of a weird question. And I know people probably ask you all sorts of weird stuff because, well, I don't know you, but anyway, sorry. My name's Steve. Nice to meet you. We'll try and do this in the right way. That's taking stuff from the first presentation. And then we go, look, I have a question about what is the most attractive quality about a man? And then she gives you an answer and she says confidence, because here's another little tidbit. Women will most likely say that it's confidence, a sense of humor, his smile, his height, stuff, and like Oprah question, stuff that they probably don't even date, or they might date a guy that's confident or has a good sense of humor, but that's not what actually keeps them there and what they think is attractive, all sort of stuff. But it's these superficial answers that people give, right? And they're being honest to you. It's hard to connect with somebody you don't know. So they say that, and you go, well, look, let me explain this. So we move into that rapport cycle. We ask the initial question, what is the most attractive quality? Then we're going to ground. We're going to ground and say, well, look, let me explain this. Like for me, relationships are one of the most important things in my life. Like I value them the most, and what I think is attractive, obviously sets the groundwork for, romantic relationships, but that doesn't always happen. Like a lot of times I get caught up in life and all these other things. So let me actually ask you this, like, when do you connect with somebody and like all of your life works? Like it could be a guy or it could be a friend, but like when you connect with them and everything works. All I've done there is, if you guys might think this is like some crazy magic, weird, creative shit that I've come up with, I'm taking my definition of relationships and using that as my ground. Then I'm asking a question that's very relevant to me. All right? The goal of this right now is that you want you to express you, and because of that, you elicit them. That's how you know it works. Okay? Let's do another example where we're actually going to do something where we ask the same question at the beginning and end. This is super simple and very easy to do. You could also do it with passions as well, but this one, we do it about relationships. And so we say, what does a relationship mean to you? They give us one of the replies. They answer back. They're confused. They're defiant. But we decide to continue, and we do the little buffer of whatever we need for the answer or the confusion or the defiance. And then we move on to the ground and we just say, see, the reason why I ask is because all of my relationships, I want to have a deep, deep meaning in my life. I want them to reflect my life. But sometimes I lose focus of that. And man, I need to be reminded of that. So that's actually why I'm asking, what do relationships mean to you? Like, what does that mean? So we're asking the same question at the beginning and end, but that ground makes it have a deeper meaning. All right. And that is how the structure works. Okay. So your goal, all right, is to be able to follow this structure and get through your expression right now, because remember, we're learning a skill. We don't need somebody to be worshiping us. A lot of the things that you'll get when you get good at rapport cycles, when you're into it, like after you've been practicing it a couple days or maybe for a month or so, is that one of the things that you're going to get is that people will say, wow, I can't believe I'm having this discussion with you, or this conversation. I don't even tell my best friend about this. After you've done like 3 or 4 cycles back to back, kind of the stuff we're going to learn in the next video. And that's really powerful, but right now I don't want you to be focused as your singular goal. What I want you to get is like, hey, there's a structure to this. I've explored myself and I'm now able to go through this and have somebody understand it, like somebody willing to communicate back with me, even though they might not be getting super deep back. Okay, that will happen. We'll show you how to make that better. But first, we just want you to get your wheels turning on this, because we're literally talking about the first video. This video is literally like how we're going to manage the first 2 minutes of our conversations to hit amazingly deep. All right. So for now, let's pause. Okay. Your goal. And we talked about this in the beginning, and we just talked about it a few seconds ago. But in the beginning, we said that your goal was to make a connection, learn this structure, and get into this conversation. Let's make this really specific of exactly what you need to do. Get 10 interactions within the same week that achieve these things. Be able to read people's replies. Okay, so that's either read it as an answer, read it as a confusion or defiance, and respond accordingly. So you need to get that down. I want 10 interactions that get that. And of those same interactions, we should continue on to use a single rapport cycle. Okay, do all of that before you move on. Get those 10 interactions. All right, so super simple, super simple. Okay, and if you really want a challenge, then of one or all of those 10 interactions, you want to get a genuine expression out of it. Okay, so them really interacting with you and saying like, wow, man, this is really cool. Like, to share something deep with you within 2 to 5 minutes, it'll happen. All right. And let me just make this clear, because I didn't say 10 super hard, difficult things. I want you to accomplish this 10 times in 1 week. That means you could fail 100 times, 1,000 times in that week. But that'd be pretty hard to get in 1,000 interactions in 1 week. But I want you to get it 10 times in 1 week. I don't care how much you fail. All right. I just want you to understand that the repetition of success 10 times. Okay. You're not looking for a massive connection yet. All right. You're looking just to get to the end of the cycle. Whether or not she connects really doesn't matter right now. It matters that you get through it and she's able to understand it. All right. That you can get 10 times. It will eventually work for you. It'll work very quick. The main points that you're looking for is, how can I express me? How can I learn this technique of question, ground, question, and also read the different replies of answer, confusion, defiance? And how can I relax and just feel normal about this social interaction? Super, super important. Don't forget that. We're not challenging ourselves to, be so uncomfortable and freaked out that we can't understand something. So we're just relaxing and chilling in this social environment, being ourselves. So in the next lesson, super cool, we're going to be hitting core, her identity, or we're going to be moving to sexuality. So that's cool. So either we're going to get this massive amount of rapport, or we're going to read her to be able to sexually escalate and work logistics there. And we're going to learn the big three. We're going to learn how to isolate. We're going to learn how to state intent, all so that we can get a date. All right. Cool stuff. Easy stuff for you to learn, guys. If you stick with this, let me just be really, really freaking clear here. If you stick with this, in 7 to 30 days, you can learn this baseline of social dynamics that will help you and outperform just so many of the other things happening with social dynamics. That's very cool. So that means it's 7 days. If you are a really quick learner and you're practicing this stuff and you're super tenacious about it, and that's just your learning curve because everybody is different. Or if you're totally slow, can't get anything, and you're still doing the work, but just not at full bore speed, 30 days. You will get this. All right. Very, very cool for you. Do yourself a favor and take this stuff seriously.
Here we are at the end of lesson 2. Look, you have access to this. This is your video. You can rewatch it. And I would encourage you to, because we're covering a lot of different things. You need to be able to get to that goal that we broke down here at the end of the video, so that you can socially perform in that way. And then you can express, then you can let go, and you'll be all set for video 3, where we're going to be talking about sex and integrating that into our conversation, so that it won't be weird. We won't have to do something crazy or bizarre. We can just simply have a conversation with somebody, get sexual, exchange intent, have them want us, have them desire us as we want them. And the next logical step is to get a date and, hey, be in a situation where we can take that to the next level. If you want that, do what we recommend at the end of this video. Get that down, get it to the point where we say you need to, and then move on to the great information in video 3. All right, thank you so much. You got any questions or things are too confusing and you're really working at this, don't be afraid to email me, Steve@thesexuallife, and we will make it all make sense.